Alright, ladies and gentlemen, with the release of Cyrene, we have our final AMPHOREUS character, and you know what? I figured we might as well do a ranking to see whether I regret any of the AMPHOREUS characters that I pulled. I saw a video by, I believe, Waveman doing a kind of what characters they regretted, and you know what, I thought I'd go ahead and give my own take as well. When it comes to the tiers, I would never regret this character. I've absolutely loved using them. Don't regret, because I'm still enjoying playing them for the time being. Would regret a bit, but I'm a bit biased because I love them. Then we've got regret a bit, characters who I actually regret, and then characters who I didn't pull for, so basically characters I skipped, or the ones which were free like Honkai PT and Archer, where I'll still give my thoughts on them. For the ones that I didn't pull, there's about 4 going in this bottom tier, so I'll definitely give my thoughts on, for example, for the free characters, whether I enjoy using them or not, and for the ones I skipped, whether I regret skipping them or not. But yeah, that's the plan for today. It will include Herta as well. Obviously Dahlia is coming out soon, but you know, I kind of want to get this out now because I'll have to use Dahlia for a while to kind of figure out if I regret her or not. But yeah, with that being said, let's just go ahead and hop right into things. But before we do that, real quick, if you don't pull any Star Rail characters, then I have the perfect thing for you, and that's today's sponsor, lootpod.gg. You can use Lootpod to top up on your favorite games like Honkai, Star Rail, or Genshin Impact and save up to 25%, along with great value offers like the all-in-one bundle, guaranteed limited and rerun character bundles, and the limited 6,480 Oniric shards pack that lasts for the first week of the brand new version. If I were to buy the 3,280 Oniric shards and get double with the top-up bonus, all I have to do is enter in my UID, region, and go to top up now, and they typically arrive in less than a minute. Creators like DuckTV and Jello Impact are also collaborating with Lootpod, so they are trustworthy, and they also have thousands of positive reviews on Trustpilot. Also, new users can get 10% off, and returning users can get up to 8% off in the first week of the new version. So be sure to check out Lootpod with the link in the description. Back to the video. Well then, with that being said, let's just go ahead and hop into the rankings. Now, for some context, I have only used these characters at E0S0. My account is fully free to play, so I don't pull for any Eidolons or Lightcons, so that I can pull for as many characters as I can, so I can enjoy as many of my favorite characters as I can. Some of these I have on my main account, some of these I have on my second account, both of which are fully E0S0. So yeah, just a bit of context. So when I am evaluating how much I enjoy these characters, it is only at E0S0. So yeah, with that being said, first of all, let's go ahead and start off with the Herta, who I pulled on my old account. I pulled Tribi for her, I pulled the Nexa for her, I used Link Shards for sustain, although nowadays I could use Danhong PT. And honestly, when version 3 came out, Herta was very strong. She was like the strongest character in the game. She was very good in all 3 endgame modes. I thought maybe she would end up in a would never regret tier. Then as time went on, I guess kind of don't regret. But I think I'm actually going to put Herta in the regret a bit tier list. Although she's good in pure fiction, I actually find more success than Herta with Nexa than Herta in basically every endgame mod. Her single target just isn't amazing. It was good at the beginning, but now that enemies now that we're in the 0.7 version, enemies' HP pools have gone up once again. I don't think her single target is quite good enough. Obviously, when she came out, there was so much AoE shilling, just because obviously we had Rappa, who was an erudition unit before her, and then we had Herta herself. So, you know, late version 2, early version 3 had a lot of AoE. Although we are kind of past that now, so she's not getting shilled as much. And then yeah, honestly, I thought the Nexa would make Herta like a would never regret tier character, but honestly, a Nexa brought down Herta a lot for me, which might be a hot take. I think in my tier list, I think I also dropped her down 2 tiers as well, if I remember correctly. So yeah, Herta might actually have to go in the regret a bit here. I barely use her on my main account, or on my old account nowadays. You know, I use an Nexa for everything, and when Dahlia comes out, I plan on pulling Dahlia for my Firefly, and then making my 2 main teams a Nexa as well as Firefly, which I did not think would happen, but here we are. So yeah, that's it for Herta. Regret a bit, but you know, for the time when she was good, she was definitely fun to play, although I just don't think it lasted long enough, unlike certain characters which will come up later. Next up we have Aglaya, who I didn't pull for. Aglaya, I also don't regret skipping, if I'm being honest. I absolutely love Aglaya's design and stuff like that. I actually think she's one of the best design characters, and she's also one of my favorite in the story. I think she's one of the most compelling. But when it comes to a gameplay perspective, although she's strong, I'm not denying that she is strong, I feel like at E0S0, which is the only way I pull characters, I don't think she's as enjoyable to play because of her massive energy cost. You know, if this was like an E1 Aglaya, then honestly probably would go like up to here. E1 Aglaya seems very fun, but E0S0 Aglaya, especially considering the fact that I don't have Hua, but even then I'd say Danheng PTs are definitely a more comfortable sustain for Aglaya. So then, you know, you have to choose between D1 more comfort or D1 more energy. There's kind of no win-win scenario on Aglaya. Cyrene definitely, I do think, has made stuff better for Aglaya, but yeah, to be fair, considering the fact that Cyrene only came in version 3.7, I don't regret skipping for Aglaya. Although, you know, if I could get an E1 Aglaya, I would very happily use her basically all the time. Next up we have Tribby, who again I would have expected to be in the would never regret tier. Although I think I'm gonna go ahead and put her in the don't regret tier. Actually, do we? No, I think Tribby has to go in the would never regret tier. Now I think about it. You know what is the one factor which is making Tribby go in the would never regret tier? She makes Blade good again. That's it. If it wasn't for her team with Blade, she'd go in the don't regret tier. She was very good in Caster's teams for the longest time. Very good in Evernight teams. Very good in Blade, Jingliu, Saber, Herta, every single DPS in the game you can play Tribby in. Like I said, I do feel like Herta teams have kind of strayed, they're not as good with Tribby anymore as they feel like they were. Anexa has strayed away from Tribby, so has Casterus, so has Evernight. Mighty still likes Tribby, Blade still likes Tribby, which is, like I said, what's keeping her here. And then she's just a really good universal support. Considering the fact that she's such an amazing universal support and that I've been using her for so long, I think I will end up putting her in the would never regret tier. I'm very happy that I did pull her. She gave me great service and she still serves my account well, even if I'm not using her quite as much as I was before. But on the bright side, Blade works with her. Sunday, Blade, Hyacinth, even at E0S0 on the entire team is very fun. Get an E1 Blade and it's even more fun. It even worked against Lygus, which was a nice shock to me. So yeah, Tribby will be going in the would never regret tier. Now next up we have Mighty, who honestly, Aglaya does very good damage. Mighty's probably maybe a bit more consistent because he doesn't suffer with the same energy issues, although numbers wise he's probably the weakest AMPHOREUS DPS, although Mighty at the same time is probably my favorite AMPHOREUS character, or maybe second, definitely top 3, possibly first. And for that reason I'm going to put him in the I would regret him if I didn't love him so much. Phynon is incredibly strong, Casterus is incredibly strong, Evernight is incredibly strong. The good thing about Mighty is that now that Siren's released, you can go ahead and play Siren alongside RMC or Evernight in a Casterus or Evernight DPS team, so you can actually have a lovely Mighty team. Mighty doesn't rely as much on Hyacinth as the others do, which technically is a bit to his detriment because he didn't get the massive upgrade from Hyacinth that the likes of Casterus did. So, you know, his teams aren't quite as strong. He still relies on Tribby, and I'd say probably Luocha would be his best sustain, and then you just snap on a Sunday. So, is he top of the meta nowadays? No. Are his double DPS teams with Casterus good anymore? Not really. But is Mighty still a decent character? Yes. And do I use him as much nowadays? No. So that's why he probably would go in regret a bit along with Herta. But like I said, Mighty is literally only above Herta because I like Mighty more than Herta. I just absolutely love Mighty. I like Herta, don't get me wrong. I've always liked Herta, but Mighty is one of my favorite characters in the entire game. You know, if someone doesn't care about Mighty and really likes Herta, they would definitely do this, and I think that's completely valid. But for me personally, this is my own list. This isn't even factual. This isn't even meta. This is literally just my personal opinions. I personally prefer Mighty, so I will be putting him in this tier over Herta. But next up we have Casterus, and Casterus is the number 1 would never regret character in this tier list. She has served me since version 3.2. And I have used her in every single endgame mode without fail. I'm pretty sure I've always included Casterus in my endgame clears, and she stayed good. I mean, it's not a surprise because she keeps getting new units. You know, the Tribby RMC team was very good at the beginning. Then we got also Mighty dual DPS teams were also decent at the beginning. Then we got Hyacinth. Then we got Siren. Then we got we got Hyacinth. Then Evernight. Then Siren. So yeah, Also upgraded RMC as well if you want to do that as well. So yeah, Castress just has so many teams. She's carried me for so long. Her damage, I do consider her the strongest DPS in the game at E0S0. Some people say, oh, there's no good remembrance light cons. You're right, but then at the same time, using a high base HP light con, I don't think is as bad for Castress compared to someone like Final not having a signature light con. I actually don't really enjoy Final without his signature light con, in my opinion, but we'll get onto that later. So yeah, Castress would be the number one, would never regret here for me. So much longevity for the time being, and then at the same time, also just really like her as a character as well. Another top 3 character, Mighty, Castress, and then Cyrene would be my top 3 for AMPHOREUS. So yeah, definitely would never regret. Next up we have a Nexa, who I pulled on my old account, like I said, originally for the Herta, and then he ended up overshadowing the Herta, so I'd say probably put him in the don't regret tier. So yeah, like I said, I wouldn't put him in the would never regret tier because I'm not as attached to him as I am Castress, and then he hasn't carried me quite as much as Castress or Trippy, but at the same time, I do feel like Anax is definitely aged like fine wine. In 3.2, I would have put him in the, I don't feel much about him, but then after we got Saridra, to be honest, the Saridra Sunday Anaxa team just feels so good to play that he has become one of my favorite AMPHOREUS DPS characters. So yeah, definitely would put him in the don't regret tier. Very powerful, definitely is my strongest DPS team on my old account, and like I said, he ended up overshadowing the Herta, which I did not expect. So yeah, definitely will put him in the don't regret tier. Next up we have Hyacinth, who is just the most comfortable sustain in the entire game. First of all, she's breathed new life into Blade. That's always going to be a massive positive for anyone. So yeah, Hyacinth in the would never regret tier. She's made my Castress and Evernight feel incredible. Good for Mighty, but I'm probably playing her for someone else instead. Also, in the dot team, you become literally unkillable with Hyacinth, basically, because when you have Hytalins reducing the enemy's attack so they deal less damage, and then the Hyacinth increasing your max HP, it's just insane. She's by far the most comfortable sustain, in my opinion. If you ult on her turn, then you don't really need to use that many skill points on her, so she's not like someone like Hua, where she's pretty skill point intensive, not like Dunhung PT or Aventurine, where if your shield breaks, although it's not easy for your shield to break, it can get a bit dicey in certain situations. So yeah, Hyacinth, I don't think I've ever died with, like, ever. No matter if enemies nuke me or whatever, just the max HP increase and then just how good her healing is. And then of course her own DPS capabilities as well as her supportive capabilities. I definitely do think that she is the best sustainer in the entire game. Next up we have Cypher, who I also skipped, and kind of like Aglaya, I don't regret. Even though I like Cypher, definitely her role in the story made Cypher grow in me a lot more. Also, I like cats, but I definitely don't regret skipping Cypher. She doesn't really have a best in slot team. She's really good in Akron teams, good in Fei Xiao teams, but then Fei Xiao and Akron aren't really top tier DPSs right now. Archer, she is good for, but then you could also use someone like Silverwolf as well. So, she's not required, or someone like Tribby. So I feel like they probably could have scaled Cypher a bit higher. I think if I would have pulled her, maybe she would go in the regret a bit here, considering the DPSs that I do end up playing, which is a lot of fine on Castress as well as Evernight. So yeah, I don't really regret skipping her, so I will put her in the didn't pull here. Pulled here. Next up we have Finon, who I feel like for a lot of people from discussion would end up going in the would never regret tier. I'm only gonna put him in the don't regret tier, and that's honestly for the time being. I know when Finon came out, people were like, oh my god, Finon sustain is so strong, but Finon Sustainus is such a pain to pull off, especially if you don't have his S1, because if you need to take like more than 2 ults to kill things, then it's just miserable. And then also you really want to make sure that you're getting your ult as fast as possible, and I don't feel like his ult generation with Saridja is quick enough in Sustainless, so I'd probably go with E2 Bronya alongside Sunday, and then probably Saridja as a third slot, or maybe Cyrene as a 4th slot, I don't know. So yeah, although I don't regret Finon, for example, in the most recent Memory of Chaos, Finon did actually struggle for me against Hule. He couldn't even clear in 5 cycles, which actually surprised me a lot. So yeah, although I don't regret Finon, it's definitely interesting to see how he'll develop. For me, he hasn't been quite as ubiquitous, indomitable, perfect as he was for other people. Maybe that's because of E0S0. I think I have a decent Finon build as well, which surprises me as well. Sometimes, I feel like his meteor damage is very satisfying, but as soon as there's AoE, his meteor damage just falls off a cliff and it feels really bad. Like, Phynon in the AoE feels really bad. You'd expect his W to do a lot of damage in AoE, because, you know, you're getting hit a lot, but it just doesn't. So, although I don't regret Phynon, he's also... I'd say he's not even close to being in the would never regret tier. He was very satisfying to play in release when he's in single target and you just absolutely nuke an enemy with the meteor strike. Then he is also very satisfying. Although once again, enemies' HPs are going up, so it's gonna take more ults, and then his ult takes quite a bit when it comes to the cycle count. So yeah, and then also if you're doing sustainless, it's just gonna be harder to pull off. So yeah, Phynon will actually have to be in the don't regret tier for me. I actually did consider putting him in the would regret a bit if I don't love them, but I'm gonna keep him in don't regret for the time being, although that definitely could change in the future. I will just go to Archer quickly. Didn't pull for him, obviously he was a free character, didn't pull any Eidolons or Lightgun for him. I have tried using him. The thing is, I don't have Sparkle, and for me, Archer feels maybe like the worst unit in the game to play if you don't have Sparkle. Oh my god, it's a miserable experience. I've tried using Hanya. Didn't feel good either. So yeah, I'm honestly not a fan of Archer purely because I don't have Sparkle. If I had Sparkle, I'm sure I would actually enjoy playing him because his gameplay does seem satisfying. I also quite like hunt characters. I love just nuking down one enemy and then moving on to the next. But yeah, although I didn't even... If I did pull for him, I would definitely regret Archer because I don't have Sparkle. On the bright side, you know, you don't need to pull for Archer, so you can save the pulls you would use on pulling him for pulling on Sparkle. But at the same time, do you want to invest that much into a free character? I'm not too sure. If you're an Archer fan, sure, but I'm personally not a Fate fan, nor am I a huge fan of Archer, even though, you know, he was definitely cool in the quest. He was probably my favorite character in the quest line. So yeah, honestly, I slightly regret building him. I never use him, purely because I don't have Sparkle. But next up we have Saber, and honestly, I'm gonna put Saber in the regret here as well. The thing is, you had to pull for Saber, and then her banner is a separate banner, so the pity doesn't carry over, which kinda sucks for me. So I feel like I kind of wasted a lot of pulls because I barely use Saber nowadays. She doesn't synergize great with any of the supports that we've been getting more recently. She does still kind of rely on Sunday, and then probably Tribby as a third slot. Robin works, although Robin doesn't feel as good nowadays. Although if you have her E1, then I'm sure she's back to feeling really good. But yeah, for me, Saber, it's not. I've tried making her work. She was cool when she released, did a lot of damage, but honestly, it's another win DPS. I'd rather use an E1 Blade, and I'd also rather use an Anexa by far. I feel like Anexa is definitely a much better win DPS than Saber, and I feel like I did kind of waste my pulls there. I barely use her. Like I said, I pulled her on my ult account, and I don't really use Saber or the Herta. Like I said, it's mainly Anexa, and then when Dahlia comes out, it's going to be Anexa and Firefly. So yeah, I actually do regret pulling for Saber, and she's probably going to be the only regret here. I wish I could get my pulls back there. She did not live up to the strength for the hype that I hoped she would, unfortunately. I kind of got brought in by the hype of the Fate collab, even though I'm not a Fate fan. I just thought, you know, Starrel's first collab character would be really pull for the first limited one, and I feel like I got baited, unfortunately. So yeah, regret here for Saber. Moving on, Hycelin's don't regret. She's revived Dot. I don't think I've played her long enough to put her in the would never regret here. It's definitely, I'll have to see how Dot develops. Hycelin's is also one of my favorite AMPHOREUS characters. I feel like I haven't seen... Now, bear in mind, I haven't played the 3.6 or the 3.7 stories yet. I just haven't had the time to. So, although we saw a lot of Hycelin's in 3.5, and I definitely did like her character in 3.5, we haven't... I haven't seen as much of her as I would have liked to. I'm not sure if that changes in the future versions. I will be playing... What I have literally just finished this semester of uni, so now that I have time off, I will be catching up to all of the Star Rail and Genshin story that I have not had the time to keep up with. So, you know, we'll see. For the time being, don't regret here, because, you know, I don't have that same attachment to her as I do to someone like, for example, Casterus. I haven't been using her as long as someone like Casterus or Tribby, although she definitely does feel very strong, but, you know, strong characters can definitely fall off quickly, depending on how the meta develops. So, yeah, for the time being, she will be going in the don't regret here. I don't regret her whatsoever. She's very strong, very fun. Also appreciate the fact that she revived my Kafka and Black Swan, and whether she goes in the would never regret, we'll have to go ahead and wait for the future. Next up we have Saridra, and Saridra basically has two teams: Phynon team, Anexa team. Anexa team, very, very fun. Phynon team, supposed to be very strong. Double Meteor is very satisfying, but I feel like Saridra just feels so clunky to play a lot of the time. You know, if I'm playing with Cyrene, you don't get that same kind of clunk instead of Sunday. But at the same time, the Cyrene team isn't quite as strong as the Sunday variant. And then when it comes to the Sunday Saridra team, I feel like so often I just want to go ahead and use my Finon Ultimate, but I don't have all of my Saridra stacks yet. And then also you want 7 out of 7 stacks in order to get a double Meteor Strike, which requires you to have 6 stacks on Finon, and then skill on Saridra next. To get the double Meteor Strike in a single ultimate, which I feel like is kind of what you want to do, but then at the same time, if it's Finon's turn going next and he's just going to double up his regular skill, which of course isn't good, and then if you go ahead and pop his ultimate and you don't get the double skill, then you feel like you've kind of wasted a bit of damage. So she just feels way too clunky to play for me with Finon. And then, like I said, my Finon still struggled in the newest Memory of Chaos, even though I'm playing him with Dunhung PT, Saridra, and Sunday. And then I also tried Cyrene, Saridra, Dunhung PT, and then I tried Sustainless, and I just died straight away. And who was the first character who died all the time when I tried Sustainless? It was Saridra. So, yeah, unfortunately, Saridra's gonna have to go ahead and go in the regret a bit tier for me. She's felt way too clunky. She's definitely good with an Exa, although, you know, I don't think she's replaceable for an Exa. Definitely very satisfying, but the Finon interaction kind of let me down long enough that I feel like I'll put her in the regret a bit here. Definitely not regret, and I do enjoy her when she works, but for me she does feel sometimes a bit too clunky, so I would probably have to go ahead and put her in the regret a bit here. Next up we have Evernight. Evernight is a newer unit, so I haven't had as much time to play her as I had Castris, so for that reason I'm going to go ahead and put her in the don't regret here. I feel like I'm more confident in Castris in the future because Castris and Cyrene is probably better in single target than Evernight and Cyrene, at least I think, because Cyrene does have that buff for Castris where you do deal extra damage when there's only 1 or 2 targets, which is very nice for her. So yeah, I maybe in the future Evernight would go in the would never regret tier. For the time being, she will be in the don't regret tier. If this was an E1 Castris versus an E1 Evernight, I would probably pick E1 Evernight just because I think E1 Evernight is very fun, and then you also do get that better single target performance basically for your entire team. Obviously, she can be played either more supportively or as a main DPS, which is very fun, so she's probably the closest character to would never regret. I feel like these two could go in would never regret depending on how the version 4 meta release goes, although knowing Startle with their power creep as well as HP inflation, I'm not sure if they'll end up ranking higher than this, but for the time being, I'll give it a tentative don't regret. You know, I don't want to put too many characters in the would never regret there. Next up, we have Dunhung PT, free character, but unlike Archer, I use him all the time. I don't regret him whatsoever. I feel like he is a very, very universal shielder, in my opinion. Best shielder we have in the game right now. Aventurine is very similar to him, although I do feel like Dunhung PT can give you slightly better offensive potential, along with the fact that he's free, so you don't have to pull him. It's always nice when you don't have to pull a sustainer, because sometimes it feels like sustainers aren't worth as much as a brand new universal support like Trivi, or with a brand new SS tier DPS like Finon, Castris, Evernight, stuff like that. So yeah, definitely do appreciate the fact that he's free, and I've been using him a lot. Definitely synergizes as well, very nice at unlocking Sunday's full potential. So yeah, Dunhung PT will be going, I don't want to spend too long on him. He's going in the free tier, but I definitely am very happy with him. And then finally we have Cyrene, and if you know anything about me, you know Alicia is my favorite character from Honkai Impact Third. And then also I love her synergy with Castris as well as Evernight. So honestly, I could never regret her. Now honestly, I actually had slightly higher expectations for Cyrene. I thought her Finon teams would feel better. I thought she would make my Finon field finally complete at E0S0. Hasn't really come true. It did in the last Memory of Chaos, but not in the one right now, just because HP pools went up again. Like I said, in there seems to be a syndrome during the 0.7 version where HP in Memory of Chaos goes up to force you to pull for the next version characters, which I feel like is such scummy practice, but oh well, what can we do? But yeah, she definitely has made Castris feel like she still has quite a bit of staying power. Synergizes very nice with Hyacinth, synergizes very nice with Evernight, and then can also be used to good success in a Nexa as well as Mighty teams and Finon teams as well, if you were being really stubborn. So yeah, personally, I will be putting Cyrene in the would never regret here, just because even though I haven't had as much time to use her, you know, she's in a similar boat to Evernight, but you know, this is a biased list, this is my personal opinions, I could never regret her. And then also I think she'll give my Castris higher staying power than Evernight will. And then also the RMC buffs as well, so that you can run an Evernight DPS team with Cyrene and the brand new RMC, which is also very satisfying, which is very nice into AoE, especially Ice Weakness. So yeah, this would be my own personal tier list. It's very clear to see what my favorite team in the game is, which makes sense because I do consider Casters to be the strongest DPS in the game, and I would consider Evernight a top 3 or 4 unit, depending on whether you value her or Anexa a bit more. So yeah, and then also Hyacinth is just the best sustainer in the game right now. So yeah, with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know, are there any characters you regret pulling in AMPHOREUS? I'd be very curious to know. If you say Mighty, I will throw hands. Just kidding, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Let me know what characters are your absolute favorite from AMPHOREUS. Which ones did you skip and regret skipping, or which ones are you glad you skipped? With that being said, I'll see you guys next time. See ya.